Good to be back with you on this microphone today. This is Craig James from MasculineByDesign.com. This is the Masculine by Design Mancast, episode number 15. And today's episode is focused on the topic of how we as men, fathers, husbands, patriarchs of our families, how we impart strength and honor to our family names. So as always, before I get started, just want to please ask you all to do me a favor. Please go to iTunes, leave the Masculine by Design Mancast a 5-star review to help me get this message out to more people and boost my search rankings there in iTunes algorithms. And if you have not done so already, go to MasculineByDesign.com. Pick up your free copy of Masculine by Design, my ebook, where I go into 4 essential principles for men to live a masculine life, principles that men have largely gone away from in the modern day here in Western society. So if you feel like you're drifting away from your masculine nature, and even if you don't feel like you are, the book is definitely a good reminder of how we as men should be living our lives in accordance with our created order, and in a way that will bless ourselves and our families throughout our entire lives and beyond. Okay, so when we think about imparting strength and honor to our family names, one very important thing to keep in mind as men is that I believe that responsibility falls squarely on our shoulders in order to lead our families, to do our due diligence in displaying what that means for those the members of our family, so they can see by the way we live what it means to have a good name, to have a strong name, to have honor attached to your family name. So some of you may have grown up in homes where this didn't mean anything. It wasn't preached. It wasn't harped upon at all. So the concept of having an honorable family name really doesn't mean anything. Some of you may also come from homes that are broken, or maybe you didn't have the best upbringing. Maybe you came from an abusive household or something along those lines. And so even just thinking about a family name being something that would be honorable is completely foreign to you. It doesn't comport. So maybe you're going to be the first link in the chain of starting this tradition. But it's a tradition that I think is extremely important. Other cultures place more importance on the honor of a family name than we do here in the West. Particularly in Eastern cultures, Oriental culture, they put a very high amount of importance on honor when it comes to a family name. So for a member to act dishonorably is a disgrace to the entire family. And so it is shunned. It's something that is taught from an early age, that the actions of each member is a reflection of the whole unit, of the entire family. And even though we may not teach that here in the West, that still applies. You know, when we as fathers do something that's disgraceful, irresponsible, we do something that's not virtuous, that reflects poorly upon our wives, it reflects poorly upon our kids, our parents. So even though each person is responsible for their own actions, it still is a reflection of the whole, whether we want it to be or not. And so we need to keep that in mind. As fathers and husbands, as we lead our homes, that we are a direct reflection of those underneath us, and also they are looking to us to provide that guidance to them as far as what it means to live an honorable and virtuous life. So I look into Scripture just to see what it has to say, and I remembered reading a while back in the book of Proverbs something to do with an honorable name or having a good name. And so I looked that up today as I was thinking about what to talk about here on this podcast, or how to go into this topic. And so Proverbs chapter 22 verse 1 says, "A good name is more desirable than great riches." So a good name is more desirable than great riches. And we're going to talk about that, but that seems like an almost absurd statement to most people, and it deserves some exploring, and we'll do that. So it says, "A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver and gold." So to be esteemed, so to be well thought of, to have a good reputation, it's better than silver and gold. And these are the words of Solomon, the wisest man to ever walk the earth by most accounts. And so when we think about a good name being more desirable than great riches, first, when we think about a good name, I think that it's important to just realize that that is not, again, just to an individual. I think that it certainly applies to an individual, but it also applies to families. And, again, how each individual conducts themselves is a reflection on the whole. So when we think about why having a good name, or being esteemed, or having an esteemed name, or a name that has a good reputation attached with it, how that could be valuable. So Solomon says that it's more valuable than riches. So I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about how that can be so. And so I'm going to give credit here to Luke1428.com, because I did a little research online, and I found a posting there on that website that I thought did a good job of just giving a few examples of that. And so I'm going to kind of borrow from those and add and expound on them a little bit of my own. But the first point that Luke1428.com made was that a good name provides stability and trust. And that's really important, particularly when it comes to relationship building, having a coalition of people around you. So the last podcast, actually I think it was 2 podcasts ago, that was the topic that I discussed, is building a coalition of masculine men. So if you're going to build a coalition of people around you, people that confide in you, that trust you, that you can trust and confide in as well, you need a good name. You need to be somebody who they can trust, who is honorable, who they know has good intentions, and they're not malevolent in any way, shape, or form toward them. So having a good name provides that. Your name, if you're known for being an honest, trustworthy, and virtuous person, people can know even before they meet you. Your reputation will precede you, so they can know that they can trust you. You're somebody who is honorable, who they'd like to get to know and confide in and have a relationship with. So having a good name allows you to almost have your motives known up front, at least, if not known, at least known that they're not malicious, and that your motives are pure, and that you're not just a selfish, greedy individual who's looking out for old number one. And so we think about what wealth can provide us. Wealth does not provide that. We cannot get that. We can't buy that. We can't buy honor. We can't buy virtue. We can't buy a reputation that is positive in the eyes of others. That's something that we have to earn through our character and the way we live our lives every day. So, and to be honest, most people who are significantly wealthy, they almost by default are not viewed that way. Most people who have a lot of wealth, and I say most because not all, I certainly imagine there are some people out there who are wealthy and who have strong character. They're virtuous, they're honorable, they're people that can be trusted. But I think those are the exception and not the rule. And because of that, when we see somebody with wealth, it makes it really hard to know if they have pure motives, or if they're being selfish or greedy with us, or just using a relationship with us to gain personally in some way. And so it's having wealth is not a way that you can really build stability and trust in terms of the way others view you. Now, another way that having a good name, or having a strong and honorable family name, is valuable is that it provides a lasting legacy. So when our life is over, what people are going to say about us. Somebody who has a lot of money, that may be one thing that somebody says about them, but we don't often remember people just because they had a lot of money, because they were wealthy. We remember what they did with it, or we remember what people did while they were alive. And so many of the most well-known people throughout history are also those who had strong character. They did things that were worth remembering, that can be looked up to. We think about people like Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Mother Teresa, Gandhi. These people who lived lives that were honorable, that were self-sacrificing. They were something that people could rally around, and knew that they were exhibiting qualities that were those that they should have as well. And so it provided a legacy. Those people, even today, after they're dead and gone, still provide that example. And so for those of us who are fathers and husbands, we provide that same example. One day we're going to breathe our last, but the way that we lived our lives is going to go on in time. And it could go on, reverberate for a long, long time. So we're going to impart the way that we live our lives onto our children, they're going to continue that cycle and pass some of that down to their children and so on. And so ideally, we live our lives virtuous and honorable and strong in character and mind, and so our sons will do the same thing and lead their families in that way, and then their sons will do the same thing, and so it continues down the chain. And so the way we live our lives can be a blessing to our progeny for many generations to come. So it leaves a lasting legacy. Wealth can do that, but I think that wealth can be consumed and disappear much more quickly and easily. You pass down, I would say even $100 million to somebody who doesn't have that kind of money, who doesn't know how to manage it, and they'll run through it, without any trouble. And we see this with a lot of people who win the lottery. There's people who are in poverty, or maybe they're middle class individuals, and they win these huge sums of money, and within very short amounts of time, sometimes within a year or within a few years, they've burned through all of their money. They weren't prepared to come into that kind of money. They didn't know how to manage it. They were probably taken advantage of by others, those around them who wanted a piece of what they had gotten. So money can be easily taken. It can be easily removed from one person to another. A reputation is not the same way. When you have a strong family name, that's going to have a lasting impact. There's nothing somebody can do to take that away from you. And another example of how a good name is valuable is that a good name can command favor from others, or if it doesn't command it, it at least warrants it. So when other people see how you live your life of good character, of good report, and you're living in a way that blesses them, that they trust you, and they know that you're an honorable person, when times come when you're in need, or when you need a hand, the people around you are very willing to pay that back to you. Even if they may not be the most honorable individuals, or their families may not be the most honorable, when they see a family led by you that conducts themselves with virtue and honor and strength and integrity, that makes them want to help you when you come across a time of need. And when you think about as well, just gaining favor in the eyes of others. Riches can never do that. Riches often alienate a person from those around them, because you just can never know, is somebody just being nice to you or being friendly to you, treating you favorably simply because you have a lot of money, or are they doing it out of a noble and not a selfish intent? So having a good name, it provides us with a lot of things that money cannot provide us. And, I still think many natural men, and I say natural, being those who chase after the desires of the world, being money, carnal desires of lust of the flesh, money, women, those kinds of things. I think that still many people, given the choice, would choose money over a strong and honorable family name. I can't change your mind there, but what I do hope to point out that there are certainly many ways in which having a strong and honorable family name is beyond something that can be bought. It has more value than riches, and that's what Solomon was saying in Proverbs 22, verse 1. So now that we've kind of covered how a family name is valuable and why we should hopefully want to build that kind of structure for our family name in our own lives and with our wives and our children and those around us, I want to talk a little bit about how we go about doing that. So how do we go about building an honorable family name? So first, I think we follow the golden rule, and that simply stated, that's do to others as you would want them to do to you. It's hard to do somebody wrong or treat somebody unfairly if you're following that rule. So that is a great way to just live your life in a manner that is going to gain favor with others and is going to be honorable and not do any damage to your family name. Also, I think we need to remind our family members. So as fathers, and husbands, we need to remind our family members that what they do has an effect on our reputation as their fathers, and the whole family either benefits or is damaged from the way that they live their lives. Now, I remember hearing a story about a young man who had graduated high school. He was going off to college, and his father, drove him to college. And, after they kind of got him settled into his dorm room and everything, the dad took the son outside as he was walking back to his car to leave his son there on campus. And as any father who has gone through that, surely knows that is a heart-wrenching experience, to drop your son off, especially if it's your oldest, your first time dropping your son off, and especially at a university today, you're kind of leaving them to the wolves, as it were. But the father pulls the son aside and he says to him, he said, "Now remember, the way that you act while you're here on this campus, even though I'm not here, this reflects on me, it reflects on your mother, it reflects on our family name." And that's absolutely true. And so I think that we would do well to remind our kids, remind ourselves of that truth. I often tell my kids, I say, now remember what the James family is about. And we work hard, we don't give up, we love God, we love others. And I tell them that all the time. And I realize that's very simplistic, but I think it helps. I think that when my kids run across a challenge or a situation where they're not exactly sure how to behave, I think that they can resort back to that. And so that's something that we do in our family, and I think that every man listening to this can kind of make up his own set of standards that he has for his family. And as my children get older, I'll expand upon that, and we'll go into more specifics about what that means. But I think it's very important that you have a reminder for your family about what it means to be a part of that unit. And when they stray from that, you need to point it out to them. You need to have a teaching moment, explain that what they did was not in alignment with the values that your family holds dear, and how that disappointed you, and what they can do next time to set things right, or even what they can do to set things right after they've behaved in a way that is not aligned with the family values that you're imparting on them. And we also have to demand excellence from our children and from ourselves. I guess I assume that as men, we're already striving for excellence in our daily activities, and I know that some of you aren't, and many men in society don't. But we should be striving for excellence and giving that example to our children. But we also need to demand that excellence from them as well. So again, kind of back to my family motto, right? We work hard, we don't give up. Those are the two things that I harp on in regards to work ethic. And then we love God and we love others. And so we have the work ethic portion, and then we also have the character. And so between all of those four statements, those four principles, by living those out, it covers almost anything that you can ever encounter in terms of how you should conduct yourself. So I demand excellence from my kids. And so if they fail in that regard, if they try to give up on something they run into a challenging situation on, I remind them that's not what we do in the James family. That's not acceptable. I'll help you through it. That's what I'll tell them. But you're not giving up. You're not quitting. You're going to work. You're going to work hard, and you're going to overcome. And they learn something from that. So we have to demand excellence, and as part of that approach, many of you have probably heard of the carrots and sticks approach. And basically, the carrots and sticks approach is a method of getting the behavior you desire out of those who look up to you or who you have authority over. So when it comes to our children, the carrots represent kind of an award or a reward for good behavior, and the sticks represents a discipline for acting out, for not adhering to the rules that have been set in place. And so that carrots and sticks analogy actually finds its origin in when riders of mules would get their mules to move, to keep walking, to go in the direction they wanted them to go. So they would hang a carrot in front of their face that would keep the mule walking toward the carrot because he wanted to eat it, right? But then there was also a stick that rider had in his hand, that if that donkey stopped being enticed by that carrot, he would give him a good stern whack on the hind end, and that would prompt the donkey to continue walking. So there's kind of the dual approach there of motivation to get the desired result out of those who are underneath our authority. So the most of all, I think the best thing that we can do to build a strong and honorable family name is to just lead by example. I've talked a little bit about that throughout this podcast already, but we cannot expect our children or our wives to live to a standard that we're not willing to exemplify for them. So when I tell my children, we work hard, we don't give up, we love God, and we love others, that is a standard that I hold myself to. And, I'm certainly not perfect. I falter in that. And when I do, I try to go out of my way to admit to my family where I've fallen short and what I'm doing to correct that next time. So it's not that we live by example. It doesn't mean that we live perfectly or that we're going to adhere to the principles that we have for our family 100% of the time. But we should hold ourselves accountable to that standard. And by doing that, we give an example to them of what it means to live an honorable, virtuous life, and that imparts strength to the family name. Even the process of admitting where you come up short and doing something to make it better, to correct it, to correct course next time, that's a strength. That's something that other families, other people will look at and say, wow, that family has their act together. Nobody's perfect, but at least when they mess up, they recognize it and they do something about it. So that is part of living with integrity, is having a standard of living and owning up to it when you fall short. And so that by leading by example, that's one thing that we need to be showing to those who look up to us. So, our family name is everything. I mean, that's how other people identify us, is by our name. I want, when people think of my name, and not just Craig, but when they think of my last name, James, when they think of that family name, that's what they think of, is excellence. They think of those who work hard, those who don't give up, those who love God, those who love others. That's what I want. That's what I want for my family name, and that's why I'm intentional about driving that into the minds of my children and my wife and even myself, that we strive to adhere to those principles. And so again, whatever principles you need to put in place with your family, even with yourself, the guys out there that are listening that are single, use this. You might not have a family yet, but you will one day. And so your family name, even now, is being developed. It's being evaluated and given a certain value and appreciation by others. So, start working on it now. Work on it now. Develop a strong family name, that when your future wife decides to come on board and join that family, it's an honor to her to be a part of that. And when you guys decide to have children, those children come into a family that already has a solid foundation, a good and honorable name for itself. So that's all that I have for today. I hope that this motivates you guys listening here to just remember the importance of a strong family name, and to work on that with your families, or with yourself, to develop that, to create that lasting legacy, a chain of masculinity, of honor, of virtue, that goes from you and will permeate down through many generations and will be a blessing to those in your family and to society as a whole. So thanks for listening. Again, if you enjoyed this, please go to iTunes, leave me a 5-star review. Also be sure to share this podcast on social media, to let those in your circle of friends and family take a listen and gain some value, and also be motivated to build their family names as well. And again, please go to masculinebydesign.com to pick up your free copy of my book, Masculine by Design, if you have not done so already. So thanks again for listening. Until next time, this is Craig James. I'm out.